Ooh, and I come into an empty room. You got your headset on, man? All right. Well, welcome to the update log, episode 74. Tonight we have some really awesome topics we're going to talk about. GOTY #1, Bioware, we have some Dragon Age, all kinds of good stuff. And the host is not here. He should be back in just a minute. In the meantime, get some other things going on here. Howdy tonight. Put my eyes on so I can see. You're late.
So I had to grab a tissue.
So I did a pathetic introduction for you. All your turn.
Oh, well, I appreciate the introduction. Alrighty. Okay. Well, here we are again, episode 74 of the update log.
You always sound so excited with that. You know, you're starting out with "Here we are again." It's like, wow, okay. Where else are we going to be on a Wednesday night? Hey, Insomnia, welcome in, man. Good to see you.
That's a good question, actually. That's a good question. We don't have plans.
Don't say it. We have plans. It's just, you know, it's challenging sometimes.
That probably get involved like a nap or something.
Okay.
I mean, I'm all right with naps. But yeah, guys, we're back here, episode 74 of the update log. Tonight we are going to discuss a couple of things. You know, we're coming up to the last. I mean, sure, we're in the last less than 2 months of the year, so this is, you know, towards the tail end of Q4, not Q3, Q4. And we all know what time it is. We're coming up to the, you know, Game Awards of various different you know, companies and you know, events and venues.
Hopefully it's better this year than it was last year.
Last year was interesting.
Interesting.
Last year was interesting. Yeah, it was.
Interesting is definitely a way to put it. There was more ads, I think, last year than there was actual content. So
yeah, about.
I lost your voice there, brother. Oh, got you back.
Did you?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. I want to say about 70 to 80% of the shows, the VGAs, Video Game Awards, was that for this year's games, or well, maybe not. No, not this year's games, but upcoming games. So,
and there was some exciting things that happened, but you know,
yeah,
for the most part, I think it was pretty lackluster, personally. Wasn't a whole lot of great content out there.
The Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could like join it or something.
Harper, welcome, and thank you very much for that. Your 1 sub, fantastic.
Thank you.
Mm-mm. All right, man. You're like dead silent tonight. What is going on? You usually talk like way too much. So you're making me talk tonight. That's bad.
Well, I
You
gotta
you
get you to say something.
you never
All
know where I might go.
right. Yep, Harper, thank you for the 18 months. 18 months up. You know what? You have me curious. What's your guess there, Insomnia Night?
Uh-oh. You're inviting Insomnia Night to guess at things. This is dangerous. I'm waiting. I bated breath to see what the reply is coming back.
Be an interesting one, that's for fucking sure. If you're talking, and this is the one
Form of
time I'll
things that
mention,
are
if you're talking
current events.
our recent
Do I need a bleep button?
no, you don't need a. Do you have a bleep button? Do we have one?
No, that's okay. I figure out something.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe do we? I don't know. I don't know. Well, no, we don't need a fucking bleep button. If you're talking about the recent elections, no, that's not why. I am
Recent,
I am
there
glad
was
of
there
the
was
outcome.
elections. What?
Let's put it that way. I'm glad of the outcome. And that's all I'll say on that.
Ooh,
No, I am. There's a lot of topics to discuss, but mainly it's something that I wanted to bring up with you guys. If you're part of our Discord, which I highly recommend you guys join if you are not. Um, we've been having kind of this Q&A back and forth there for a little bit here. One of the things that kind of jumped out to me during that, it was about storytelling and things that grab you in games, etc., etc. One of the things it kind of brought to mind for me is the hero's journey. And for those of you who don't know, or maybe not familiar with the term, give you a brief summary. Hero's journey is essentially a protagonist has a situation that happens to them, usually, negative. It's usually, I don't want to say traumatic. Traumatic is not the best way to put it. But it's a life-changing event that forces them to then leave the life that they knew, go through a growth phase, and come out the other side, typically a better, wiser person.
that's an extremely abbreviated version, but yes.
Yes. Yes. I'm sure we'll get into the nuance of that whole thing, but basically you start out in one place, something happens to you, you got to go on this, and typically it's a journey. It'll take you away from where you're at, both physically as in your location and metaphorically as as a person. And you go through a bunch of things throughout that journey, and then you end up on the other side of that better for it. And again, that kind of stood out to me because not only, we, for the longest time, it primarily appeared in books. Number of standouts kind of come to mind: Tolkien, Robert Jordan. We've mentioned here on the show before. Um, I mean, point to any really, fictional story. It doesn't have to be science fiction or fantasy, but any fictional story. And they're typically going through a hero's journey. It actually has a term, and I don't know if this is the official term, but it was coined by a man by the name of Joseph Campbell, the monomyth. This is a gentleman who wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He was a scholar and writer. Basically, he was, I want to say, one of the first, because the hero's journey it's existed since Beowulf, since the great epics. It's another big one.
Mhm.
The Epic of Beowulf. This kind of storytelling has existed for the longest time, but it's prevalent in our games, and I don't think a lot of people really think about it. Some probably don't even know that that's a thing. But one of the big games that it is clearly told, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is essentially a hero's journey. For those of you who have ever played it, I have. Pretty spot on analysis. And it's interesting because we can find that in quite a few games. I'd even say most games these days. But I want to hear what you guys think. What do you think about that, Greg? The hero's journey how it's, at least in my opinion, has influenced games and game creation, from narrative design to
Storytelling period, man. Hero's journey
storytelling.
is
Yeah.
it's really, it's writing 101. Honestly, that's the hero's journey is you can recognize it in most really good stories, the stories that really stick with you. You think of television programming over the years, and the things everybody knows. Karate Kid, right? Well,
Yeah,
Karate Kid is
Mr.
a hero's
Miyagi,
journey.
wax on, wax off. Yeah.
The oddity is that the hero's journey works even when you're not a hero. So there's a lot of stories out there that are more centered on the quote unquote bad guy, or we'll say not so good guy. Punisher is one of those. I mean, that's a question for people, is Punisher a good guy or a bad guy? I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it. Deadpool, another one. But yeah, hero's journey it's the easiest way to create a legacy story, more or less, because you're going to hit all the key elements that make the story entertaining.
True.
And otherwise, and actually, I guess I should say, mastering your ability to write a hero's journey is also challenging. When you just call it the hero's journey, it sounds like it's so much simpler. And it is, because you have a path to follow in essence. But, storytelling is not necessarily an easy thing. And anybody could tell a story, but is it good?
It's very true. Is it a good story?
Right.
We
Are
don't
people
know.
interested? That's my 25 cents.
That's your 25 cents?
Yep.
What about you, Insomnia Night? What do you think? And Harper, if you're there, which I think you are. What do you guys think? I'm gonna tell you my 2 cents once we hear theirs. But until they drop their response, some current news. Veilguard, Dragon Age Veilguard has dropped. 2, I'm not going to say mixed reviews. Mixed reception. How about that? That's a better way to put it. And again, before we go down this particular rabbit hole, I want to preface it by saying, stay respectful. This has been definitely a polarizing game for some, for various reasons. Some of which we're not going to go into. But for me personally, I have watched enough playthroughs of it to know that it's definitely not a game for me. I don't feel it is a continuation of the Dragon Age franchise for me personally. Um, it it doesn't look the same. It doesn't. I'm not gonna say it doesn't play the same because the gameplay mechanics have changed over the years. Um, it just doesn't feel like Dragon Age to me. It feels, honestly, it almost feels like the MCU was slapped into this particular game. That's just my opinion. So take it with a grain of salt. Harper says it has been fun. Okay, so what have you liked about it? Tell us what you've liked about that game.
Nothing. Apparently. That's what I'm hearing from you.
I didn't. Well, okay. Here's what I did like. I like the fact that Bioware did put it out without any DRM, so none of the third party anti cheat, kind of crap, um, which has been shown many times to negatively impact performance. No microtransactions or anything like that I've seen thus far. Um, you know,
So Harper says, I would disrespectfully, no, she says respectfully, disagree. I think it does fall in the Dragon Age. To me, it falls back towards Dragon Age 2, and it's not overly complicated. Sounds like a game for me. You can actually enjoy the story. It goes on to say she doesn't feel like it's freaking complicated. All right, freaking. I like that. All right, freaking complicated that I get mad at the mechanics. I like the story. It's engaging. Yeah, it's different, but given where they are located in the story, it makes sense and isn't wrong from what we heard earlier in the stories. So it follows the lore. Fantastic. And now I just have to get Rob to stay in his seat. There you are. You're back.
yes, I am.
So, nice chat. So yeah, it seems to me like Harper, she has a very different take than you do, man.
She does.
She does.
And again, it's each their own. I've watched some let's plays. Well, when I say I've watched some let's plays, 5-hour stream, talking, showcasing the mechanics and some of the story beats from a couple of well-known streamers, and the mechanics and gameplay to me, just from a visual perspective, and said streamer kind of relaying all that information to the stream, seemed kind of simplistic. But with Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, the game definitely did move away from the complexity of Dragon Age Origins in terms of combat, where Dragon Age Origins was basically what we called
Nice.
Wow. Welcome back.
Thank you. I don't know what's going on.
You're a little spotty tonight.
Yeah. Dragon Age Origins was basically real-time pause. So you had real-time combat, combat that continued slow, and then you had a pause mechanic that you could do.
Okay, so she says, I mean, fair. I get frustrated with overly complicated mechanics myself, so honestly, it was a turnoff for me with some of the early games, that there was so much to learn with mechanics.
That's fair.
Some people really get into the mechanics piece to the games, though. That's, I mean, especially, I think probably especially like the more competitive games, like your PvP style games, stuff like that. because that's part of the challenge is understanding the mechanics.
Yeah. Greg, what's your take? Are you someone who prefers more of a
I'm a story person, man. That's the
okay?
mechanics don't necessarily bother me unless it's super complicated. You know what I mean? If it's really complicated and there's a lot that you have to learn to be able to play, really have fun playing the game, then there better be something else really good about the game. Maybe it's good visuals, the aesthetics to it, maybe there's some really good story, because otherwise I'm not going to put the time in to learn mechanics.
That's fair. So all right. So you're telling me you would much prefer a mechanically simplistic game, but a good story. Are you like what about visually? Because
I like
visually, I will say Veilguard looks really, really good. Very good visual.
I like the visuals, man. I mean, that's some of the games that I do play. Some of
Yep.
them don't have the greatest the greatest visuals, but things like Cyberpunk,
Yep.
ESO actually does have really good graphics to it.
They do.
Um,
A little dated now, but yeah,
yeah,
they do.
So, I mean, I like good story first, but I mean, if it's got good visuals to it, then yeah, I'll stick around for that.
Fair enough. The Kunari. Yeah, I've seen some pictures of the Kunari, and they uh,
The early Final Fantasy MMO had, because it was designed to be more of a team played game,
yep.
um and to inspire player interaction, things like that. It was really heavy mechanics. There were a lot of things that you couldn't do unless you could combine moves with another class or player. um and then there were all kinds of additional moves that you could do, like monks and white mages could, if I did this and then they did that, then we'd get this special effect that would happen. um Stuff like that kind of drives me nuts, because uh, I'm not real good with that stuff. Usually if
Hmm.
I hit the special bonus things, it's purely by accident. It just looks like I know what I'm doing. I don't.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, okay. All right. So Harvard, since we have you talking, what about my first question? What games that you've been playing or have played in the past that really exemplify the hero's journey? And kind of from what you can remember in your perspective, how do you think those have kind of informed that narrative? Okay, Veilguard. All right, let's talk about that. Let's keep the spoilers to the minimum. But yeah, let's talk about that. Okay.
She's heavy into the Dragon Age games, it looks like. So
They're good. They're good games, man. I don't know if you've ever played them, but they're pretty solid games.
don't worry about it.
Oh, well, just talk. Okay, well, you can pause the game for a minute. Go ahead and talk.
It's just, so she's currently playing. Fantastic. Foxy, welcome in.
Foxy Patrick, yeah, welcome in. When I think of the hero's journey in video games, I think Prince of Wow.
Actually,
Wow.
that's
That is a throwback and a half.
very true.
Yeah, very true. That's been around since the NES, since the first Nintendo Entertainment System, Prince of Persia. I remember that game. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, absolutely spot on. Hey, I respect it. Love that game. Though, side note, isn't Prince of Persia based off of an Arabian Nights story? Or does it have like a connection to an Arabian Nights story?
I think so. I think it is.
I thought so. Thought it just occurred to me. I'm pretty sure I've had it in the past before as I was either playing the game or thinking about the game, because it definitely.
Making choices like a hero and seeing how it affects your party's views of you.
Okay, that definitely is. That is part of the hero's journey. Most, if not every hero's journey that I've ever read or seen of, the hero is not alone. They do have companions. It's not a solo journey.
Well, typically they have a mentor.
Yeah. Typically, again, it's a mentor. It's companions. Not because I immediately think of Wheel of Time, but
Moraine.
Yeah, Moraine, Lan. Those are individuals that were mentors, but in Rand's case, the other individuals that went with him, were his equals in a sense. The girls, well, Nynaeve was. I'm not gonna say she was a mentor, but she was maybe an older sister to him. You have Egwene, you have Perrin and Matt. They were all kind of in the same boat, so to speak. Okay. So we're going to get to your question or your response in a moment, Harper. Well, that was your response in Varric. Okay, tell the audience why Varric, like why that particular character. While you're doing that, I'm going to go back to Foxy. So Foxy, why Prince of Persia? I mean, you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. That is definitely a game steeped in the hero's journey. But why that one? And what version are you explicitly thinking of? Because there have been a couple. Actually, there's the most recent one was earlier this year, I want to say.
Prince of Persia?
Yeah. Prince of Persia was earlier this year. And what about you, Insomnia Night? See you looking there.
Oh, don't worry about spoilers.
The 360 version, Sands of Time. I'm thinking that's the one where that. I'm not gonna say it was an awful movie. It was all right. It was a good popcorn flick. The one with Jake Gyllenhaal. That one that's based off of, where he puts like the orb in like his like chest plate thing. Cause that's the one I'm thinking of. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I played that one too, and that's the one I default back to as well. Because while I played the one for the NES, I was too young to really even remember it. But yeah, I was thinking of that one. He was. I mean, he definitely was a spoiled brat. It kind of gave me some Siddhartha vibes. Definitely gave me some Siddhartha vibes. So, Harper says, I can't really say without giving away spoilers, but I know in Inquisition he kind of helped guide your character more with questions and making you really think about the choices your character would make. So a mentor. So Varric is definitely your mentor type character within that narrative. Yeah, and you need that. That's the thing with a hero's journey. You're not alone. You can't take that particular journey alone. I would say it would be impossible. And ideally, you probably couldn't do it without a mentor either. Because again, your journey is supposed to take you from what you knew into situations that you're not necessarily sure of, are out of your comfort zone is the best way to put it. And you're supposed to get past those and then, progress and grow. All right, so and you have to undo the harm you did to basically save everything and everyone you love. Yeah, that's definitely the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time story. You kind of screwed up a little bit. I can't remember the entirety of the story, but I'm pretty sure the prince at some point screws up and is kind of at fault for what happens, and then has to take steps to, as you say, Foxy, basically save everybody from their screw up. All right, so I guess I'm going to answer my own question. For me, the biggest game that exemplifies the hero's journey is an old school MMO called Lord of the Rings Online. That was, and the ironic part is, and I'm gonna talk about another game that does this pretty well, is how do you have the hero's journey in a video game that's meant for open world exploration, and in this case, Elden Ring is it's mostly a single player game. It's a co-op game, so not a multiplayer game. It's a co-op game because you can import people into your actual game to help you fight bosses, and there's PvP in there as well, so you can fight other players. For the most part, you play it solo, whereas Lord of the Rings Online is an MMO, so it's a massive multiplayer game. So the big question there is, okay, how do you showcase the hero's journey in a game like that? And that all comes down to the narrative. And Standing Stone Games, which is the publisher of that particular game, has done a fantastic job of telling your character's story as someone who is part of Middle Earth and assisting the Fellowship. So you do interact with them. So if you never played the game, you do it. You're not part of the Fellowship. You interact with the Fellowship. But in the way they do the narrative, you have your own hero's journey from the time you log into it and progress your character.
So there's a graphic of the hero's journey and the idea behind how that story would be written. It's just an idea. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to follow that exact same path, but you start out in your known space, so who you are. Mm-hmm. You have your call to adventure, whatever that may be. I'm just going to use the Karate Kid as a basis. So Karate Kid, this guy, Ralph Macchio's character. Well, that too, but he moves to a new place. You know what I mean?
I was just about to say anybody,
that. Yeah. So that's kind of he gets his ass beat a few times.
So he was taken from what he knew, which they kind of what I like about the Karate Kid. I'm glad you mentioned that because they take the first two steps, and I'm using air quotes there because they take what he knew and the catalyst for him to move, and they put it in the same thing. His moving was the reason for the beginning of his hero's journey.
Right.
So it was an interesting narrative choice there. I wonder if they even knew that they were making that particular narrative choice in relation to their. Probably not, but it's interesting where the journey itself becomes your impetus for change.
Yeah. Well, and then you have to look at, okay, so supernatural aid sometimes is in there, sometimes it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That also could
surprising.
reference things that are outside of his control, and
Mhm.
his dad's new job or whatever is not something that's inside his control. So that could be your supernatural aid that brings you to the threshold. So the threshold um, is where you potentially meet the bad guy for the first time, or whatever the obstacle is, whatever the challenge is. And for him, it was getting his ass beat. He's didn't know how to fight, and that was the threshold right there, where the transformation begins of figuring out. He meets his mentor in there, which is Mr. Miyagi, and learns goes on this adventure of learning how to fight, how to be the Karate Kid.
Mhm.
And then
And I mean, well, not just a Karate Kid, but how to be himself.
right,
You know,
right.
what was the character's name again? That was I know the actor's name was Ralph Macchio, but what was the character's name? Daniel Russo.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Daniel Russo. Yeah. Daniel-san. Rip Pat Morita. You will be missed, Mr. Miyagi. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure he was also Pat Morita actually did know karate. Fairly certain he actually did.
I am not going to say anything. I have no idea. I'm assuming that he did.
Yeah, I'm assuming that he did because he did just a little too well practiced. um,
Probably, and it probably literally was karate that he knew. I mean,
uh,
there's
uh,
the American version of that. It's like
yeah,
everything
and then
else.
there
There's the
was
American version.
and then the traditional Japanese karate, like, and there are multiple different disciplines in that, but we're gonna go down that rabbit hole. Um, so going back to Elden Ring, which is kind of one of the first games I mentioned here. One of the interesting things and interesting challenges that I think Elden Ring and games like it had, Lord of the Rings comes to mind as well, is again it's the hero's journey and kind of that heroic journey in open world where you you have to go explore and experience the world. It's not on rails where you know books, the Lord of the Rings, Beowulf, any of those, they're kind of step by step by step. They know where they're going because again, it's a story. And then some games, again, they go from level to level to level, zone to zone to zone. But again, it's on rails. With regards to you know Elden Ring and games like it, where you're as a narrative designer and a storyteller, you have to weave that heroic journey into the world itself. Um, and you have to do it in such a way where, at least in my opinion, where the world itself plays a much larger role in your character's progression than it would otherwise in like a story. You know,
Really?
that's just yeah. Because in an open world game, the world itself is a more of a character than in a game like Foxy said, like Prince of Persia or Harper. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure Veilguard is open world, right? Or kind of pseudo open world because I remember one of the
I haven't
another
played it
critique
yet, so I
that's
have no idea. Semi-open world.
okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say because I remember one of the critiques that some of the streamers had was that it's open world to a point. meaning it's not like open world like an MMO or like Elden Ring where you can go pretty much anywhere. It takes you from zone to zone, and it's open to a certain degree within that area. So it's got boundaries. Okay. So all right. So it's semi-open world.
Right. So yeah, Foxy makes a comment here about I think how people play those games says a lot about the player. When the player has to make choices that make them more or less heroic, you can learn a lot about the people. So what does it mean? What does it mean then if you don't make heroic choices? I mean, what if you go the other way? What if you're like, kill the village, screw it.
I mean, does that count as a hero's journey?
Well, why not? I mean, it's you're just not it's the villain's journey.
It's the villain's journey, yeah.
A villain's a hero to somebody. I mean,
it's just for fun? Question mark. I mean, honestly, that's an interesting question to pose to ourselves in the audience. If a game, narratively speaking and mechanically speaking, allows you to do villainous things, a perfect example for this one, also another really great game if you've ever played it, Fable franchise, definitely hero's journey. But again, like you just said, Foxy, and Greg starting it, what happens if you do slaughter that village? Does that still count as a hero's journey?
well, Foxy makes a comment here, but if someone is truly making the villain's choices because it's in their nature, and that's I'm sure there's people out there somewhere that make some of those choices that are in their nature.
Bad choices for bad reasons.
Bad choices for bad reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, just because I want to make bad choices.
Well, most of us make bad choices without realizing it. So I mean,
true story.
I think most of the times though, I find this in myself. Like the Fallout games, like Fallout 4, Fallout 3 has the mechanics to some extent, where the things that you do throughout the game impact how your companions view you. And there's specific companions that are built for the bad characters, and there's the more neutral ones, and then there's the good guys. I don't think there's a difference. I don't think it's called the hero's journey, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a hero.
Sure. Asterion, yeah, that's
Right.
a character from Baldur's Gate 3. Again, I do want to talk about that here in a minute. He's an interesting character in Baldur's Gate 3 because he is not necessarily a good character. I wouldn't even say he's an evil character. I think he's an opportunistic character. He's I'm gonna do what's best for me kind of guy.
If you run enough games, you get familiar with making those choices on both sides of that line, Foxy.
You do, and that leads me into my next. Go ahead, Greg.
I was just gonna say somebody's got to be the bad guy, because you can't have a hero if you don't have a villain of some sort. It doesn't have to be. That's the thing, though. Villain doesn't necessarily mean a person. It can mean something bad. You know what I mean? You gotta have something bad to have that yin and yang thing.
You have to have a negative to have a positive. Okay. So my next question is
Negan, yes.
In terms of D&D and other tabletop RPGs, do they lend themselves inherently to the hero's journey? Like by default is what I mean. Are games like that by default the hero's journey archetype? even if you were to homebrew it. Greg's thinking real hard. I got him with this one.
Well, no, I think the answer is yes, but not, because it depends on the player, honestly. If you're trying to tell a story, okay, so like me when I play, I mean, I always want to tell the character's story. That's really what my thing is. I want to tell the character's story. So in that case, I mean, regardless of whether the character is good or evil, I mean, there is going to be some hero's journey there. Because, generally speaking, I mean, it's just it's really hard to make a heroic character or a character that does big and great things out of, the milkman. I mean, maybe. I mean, they got movies out there about beekeepers and things like that. But
True.
I mean, think about it, the water boy. I mean, what do you do with that? You can, if you're really creative, you can make a hell of a story out of it. But they're not, they're not going to continue to be a water boy, probably.
Yeah, and by the end of the movie, he's not just a water boy.
Right.
I'm pretty sure, anyway. I think he graduates to like.
Mama says.
I think he actually graduates and then graduates to actually playing on the team. So that is something. Okay. So Foxy Project says there are so many variables to those, it's hard to call anything default. True, and that's why I posed the question, because there is a definite argument to be made, as Greg kind of just made it, where the premise of games like D&D and other TTRPGs is that you are going to take a character and by default take it from something familiar through a journey where there are going to be elements that will act on that character, both good and bad, cause that character to change, and then come out the other end of that particular journey or perish.
I think our tendency, as the player, I think our tendency is to always view ourselves as the hero. We always, I see that with players a lot, how their character always ends up on that good side of things. They're trying to make moral decisions. They're, looking at, I would say, they don't want to be judged as being a bad guy or a bad whatever by those around them. Even evil characters sometimes. People will play them that way. They'll play them with this sense of morality that maybe
even if it's a skewed morality, yeah.
Right, maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just a stretch for the individual to be able to role play something that they don't necessarily agree with. You gotta, in essence, in that way, you have to kind of think of yourself as an actor. You're playing a role. It's just because your character does something doesn't mean that you yourself would make that choice or do that thing. And I think video games do challenge that to a certain extent because, there's cases in video games where you're forced to make some really hard decisions. And those decisions usually involve, am I going to be the villain or am I going to be the good guy?
Yeah, no, you're completely right. All right, so we got some feedback from the audience. Fox says, but there's always pretty much a journey. Pretty much always a journey. So depending on the end goal of the party, it could be considered a hero's journey. True.
I think you're right.
True.
That's why I say it doesn't matter. You're not necessarily a hero. It could be the villain's journey. Same.
Yeah. I think you are correct. And then Harper says, even with some evil characters, they may believe what they are doing is the right thing, even though others view them as wrong. They may see themselves as trying to be a hero, do the right thing, but others don't necessarily see it that way. Like Illidan, who's a character from the World of Warcraft universe. Yeah, that guy definitely embodied that aspect of I'm doing what needs to be done. You just don't fucking see it. And to his credit, he was definitely doing what he could to undermine the Burning Legion, which was one of the major antagonists for a long time. However, the way he was going about it, not the best.
I do want to pick up the last statement from Foxy. So Foxy says the best villains have a very strong moral compass. It's skewed, but it's there. And
oh, absolutely.
That's interesting, because what about the Joker from Batman?
Ooh, does he have a conscience, let alone a fucking moral compass?
I think he is.
Well, also, it depends on who's writing him, so we got to keep that in mind. Depends on who's writing him.
Yeah. I agree with what she's saying, because the bad guys who have that conflicted view where I don't know if I would say I know what's right, but I know what I want to do. But I mean, it's just where they question themselves to a point where they're like, is this the right thing? I know what needs to be done, and I know that I can do it, but is it morally just? Is it right?
You mean the villains or the heroes?
Well, I think both can be put in that position.
Both.
And I don't think the decisions that are made there make you good or bad. I think the idea is to sway perception of that character as to whether they're good or bad. Take for instance, okay, take our Alien game, Captain Rex. Is he a good guy or a bad guy?
Depends on who you ask.
Well, exactly. I mean, he had his own motivations. Maybe he was conflicted about it, but at the same point,
motivations are save his own ass.
Well, what was he gonna do? Was he gonna let the aliens survive?
No.
Well,
That's fair.
Just leave that ship out there for the next person to come along and encounter it. Negan's a good one.
Negan and Shane from The Walking Dead.
I don't know. Shane was kind of a psychopath, though. I mean, that dude, he is scary. That character, Shane from The Walking Dead. That's the kind of guy that I don't know.
He was. He was definitely one of those characters that it was hard, to a certain point, it was hard to sympathize with him. For me.
Well, me too. I didn't, there's so many things you got to weigh into that story, but that particular character, I just think he was a dirtbag. I mean, all the way around.
Yeah.
I mean, he
started out good, and then somewhere along the way just fell off a hill.
Did he start out good, or was there just not an opportunity for his true self to shine through?
Are you telling me or asking me?
I'm asking, because I mean, his tendencies were very, very narcissistic. Okay, and
I think he started out good, but then at a certain point, his mentality turned to I'm going to protect
What's mine?
me and mine, and it came to a point where what was his or what he thought was his wasn't actually his. It belonged to somebody else.
Well, that's the ambiguity
That's,
to the actions,
yeah.
to the things that you're faced with. Because I mean, that's the what Foxy's talking about there, seeing things from his perspective. She's saying she doesn't sympathize with him, but there were times when he wasn't wrong, and that's true, and I think that's what makes a really good villain. That character was, in my mind, very well written. They created a character in that story that did exactly what they wanted that character to do, because they wanted you to build an emotional attachment, and then in the end, they wanted you to be happy that he was gone. Still, you know, you still got that, you're emotionally torn when that character dies, because it's like, well, it was his best friend. He did, you know, take care of his wife and his son, you know, thinking he was dead, yada yada yada. He helped save these people. So there's it definitely gives you that emotional challenge where you look at the situation and you're torn between, okay, was this guy a good guy or a bad guy? But then you see what he did to Otis, trying to get away from the school, and it kind of answers the question for you, you know.
Yeah, and that for me was kind of what sealed the deal there, and obviously clearly for him as well, because that's when he really went off the deep end.
Oh yeah. Rick was no saint, for sure.
No, Rick was definitely not a saint, man. Definitely not a saint. I'm a Daryl fan all the way.
I'm a Carol fan.
Daryl, that man, like he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do me.
We'll never know, Foxy.
We'll never. Well, see, that's the thing. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Or we'll never know if Otis might have made that same call himself.
Well, or could he have gotten the supplies back if he hadn't? Could Shane have gotten the supplies back if he hadn't did what he did to Otis?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't even try to save Otis. He just looked at the situation and said,
shot him in the leg and said,
right, I need to feed these guys so that I can escape, and you're the only thing I have at hand, so.
And here's the sad part too: is Otis went back to save him.
Yeah.
Oh no! From what I remember, I think he either went back to save him or he actually led the walkers away from him. I think one of the two. I can't exactly remember.
Yeah, we kind of veered off onto Walking Dead, Duelist Kind.
Yeah, we're talking about the hero's journey, Duelist Kind, in multiple mediums: games, movies, books. Side
quest. Is a side quest.
Side quest. Okay, I'm laughing at something, but are you saying Shane?
Nice.
Otis trying to save Shane was a side quest or something?
No, what we're doing is a side quest. Catch up.
Absolutely. This is definitely a side quest. I don't know. I was still stuck on Shane shooting Otis in the leg and watching him get torn apart. That was, I don't know, man. I couldn't do it, especially for a guy who came back to save me. Couldn't do it.
We did. We went down a TWD side quest for sure.
Like, I'd be like, we're making it back to the truck or something. We're doing something. Because here's the thing with the walkers and the Walking Dead. They weren't, I don't know, they weren't like super fast. They weren't really fast. Some of them could move quickly, yeah. But for the most part, I mean, if you just jogged, you were gonna get away.
Don't worry about it, Foxy. Here's the thing: we have some content that we are going to cover tonight at some point.
Are you talking about? We are covering it just in bits and
Are-
pieces.
yeah, yeah.
It was quantity over speed. I mean, they were getting chased down by a lot. Yeah. We're talking about the moral dilemma there of
Well,
Otis
okay,
getting
so
shot.
yeah, here. Okay, so Shane from TWD, evil, good, or somewhere in between. What do you think? Personally,
I'm gonna say somewhere in between, but ultimately that that last. I mean, that last half, like it was. I'm gonna protect mine. I'm gonna look after mine. No matter what I gotta do.
I'm
And
in Foxy's camp. Overall, he was evil.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think you started to see it more
Mm-hmm.
as the choices became harder.
He did.
Where he was tasked with making a right or wrong choice and made the right choice.
Well, and when things began to impact him, in other words, when he was beginning to feel loss, and
Yep.
that's, I mean, I honestly think that he was the embodiment of a narcissist,
Oh, absolutely.
and that's, it's he's going to make choices that fit him. And as long, sometimes those choices are going to benefit you, and as long as those choices that he makes that benefit you also benefit him, everything's good. But as soon as Rick showed back up on the scene, I mean, he had taken over the little family for good reasons, but
Uh-huh.
they were self-serving reasons.
Yep.
And he was not excited to see Rick, his quote unquote best friend. He was not
Yeah.
excited to see him. He seen Rick, and immediately his mind went to, oh shit, now I'm threatened.
Yeah. Now what's mine,
Right.
not mine anymore.
So, you have that. Go ahead, Duelist, you got a really big butt in there, man. That didn't sound right, I know, but that's all right. I'll let Rob back in since he has problems staying in his chair. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
seeing Duelist Kind's really big butt.
Okay. Okay. So
And
what's the big butt? I'm waiting for it, buddy.
wonder how many of the difficult choices he made were because he just wanted to disagree with Rick to prove a point to Lori. That's that. You got a point there because Lori wasn't that character turned out to not be such a great character either. I mean, you in a way you can understand, what, because she was, she thought her husband was dead. She was just trying to, protect her child and protect herself. So if there's anybody that maybe was middle ground, it would be her. I don't think she was evil by any means, but
She was doing the necessary thing, at
right,
least in
she
her
was
world.
doing what she felt was necessary, and
She was possibly my least favorite. I felt like there were times she pitted Rick and Shane against each other. I think so. I think she pitted more Shane against Rick than Rick against Shane, to be honest. But something I want to circle back to before we get too deep down the Walking Dead rabbit hole is we talked about the character of the Joker earlier and asked hit the question regarding him. And again, depending on who's written the story and who you ask, the Joker has many detractors and many supporters, oddly enough. Um, but he also has his origin story tends to change, depending on who you ask. One of them is, I'm going to read it here verbatim. It is believed that the Joker was originally a failed comedian called Jack Napier, and that he became a criminal to support his pregnant wife. During a robbery, he was pursued by the Batman and fell or jumped um, into a large vat of chemicals. It was those same chemicals that then, bleached his skin, mutilated him, and turned him into what we would what would then be now known as the Joker. The killing joke one, right? The killing joke. That one is, if you've never read it, it's a graphic novel, heavy on the graphic. That one's rough. That one's a rough one. I ain't gonna lie. That one's a rough one. Um, I've read that particular graphic novel, and the fact that Bruce Batman didn't beat the brakes off him and kill him like he did in another graphic novel, I think his injustice is when he finally snaps Joker's neck. Uh, I'm surprised. I'm surprised. I'm probably and here's the thing. No, I don't want to go down that rabbit. That's another rabbit hole. We're not going to touch that one.
Yeah.
But based off of what I just read in that particular origin story, is the Joker evil or good?
He's evil.
Fair enough. I agree. I agree. The Joker is, in my opinion, no matter his origin story, the Joker is most assuredly the personification of chaos and evil.
There are those. I think there are those people or characters out there who just have that ability to overcome, the maybe they're less empathetic, I don't know, but they have the ability to make the hard decisions and things that most of us would look at and say, yeah, that's ugly. And those people are not necessarily evil unless they enjoy making those decisions. And in the case of the Joker, I think he genuinely enjoyed the things that he did, the evil things that he did. Therefore, he's evil.
Oh yeah, and I will agree with you, Foxy, to a point, because the Joker, he was definitely insane. Like, I think we can all agree on that. But he knew what he was doing. Like, he was 100% cognizant of the fact and aware of the fact and 100% okay with the fact, the things that he was doing. Insane or not. In his case, his insanity did not take him out of his right mind.
What about his girlfriend?
I think she was good. She was good, but she also did some terrible mistakes. She was good because if you look at the progression of her particular narrative and her journey, she admits many times throughout that journey of the bad things she's done and has felt remorse for them. Whereas the Joker has not. There was only the only time that I think the Joker, and again, this is based on a particular story, and I don't know if this is actually canon or it might have been like a small little print or whatever. But there's a point where the Batman actually dies. Like, he actually dies. There's a funeral for him, and all of the villains of Gotham, even the Joker, actually show up to his funeral. It was again, I don't know where that particular. It was a couple pages that I had read, and I can't remember what comic or graphic novel it was from, but I do remember that that was something that was shown, and the Joker expressed. I mean, I'm not gonna say he expressed remorse of the shit that he did, but he lost. He lost the Batman as well, so he expressed sadness for that.
Yes, he is
Uh,
obsessed with Batman.
uh,
So I just want to back up just a moment to what Foxy was saying about evil and good and how that could or could not apply to someone who's certifiably insane. So what do
okay.
you think about that? Because there's definitely a point to that. I guess it's our.
Certifiably insane. To what extent? Because you can you can call the Joker certifiably insane, and I believe he was. But again, like I said, he was definitely in his
I,
right mind.
I'm not sure on that one myself. Depending on what caused the insanity, the character might not be aware of the choices they are making. Theoretically, okay, yeah. Um, no, I see your point. I definitely think that that a person's cognitive ability or their ability to feel empathy definitely plays a role in there. And there are certain conditions that overwhelm the your senses, your mind. Schizophrenia, things like that, where you may do things without really realizing the damage that you're doing until after the fact, and then
Yeah,
it
until
just
it's too late.
right. Then it just becomes okay. Now that you've done this thing, how do you feel about it? Um, I, yeah. That's an interesting question. I don't think I'm qualified to answer that one, man.
Yeah, I'm not a clinical psychologist who deals with the criminally insane, so I don't know. But for me, and it could be the way I'm looking at a particular individual who's insane and does evil things, is that I basically take the insanity and couple it with the fact that that aspect of themselves have pulled them out of a rational thinking human being state of mind, like what any reasonable human being would do. That particular insanity has pulled them out of that being.
No, I see it. I want to draw a line here between characters and not to jump back and forth to different topics here, but
No, yeah.
so let's just take for a moment and compare two characters that we've talked about tonight, two totally different things. So on one hand, you have the Joker, and um, we see the actions there, we see the personality behind that. But now take that character and compare it to Negan from The Walking Dead, because
It was definitely on a hero's journey.
well, yeah, definitely. But I mean, if you didn't know the backstory piece to it, and honestly, how much does the backstory piece really matter? Because at a certain point, you become comfortable with making these decisions, and they're decisions that are inherently evil. I mean, really. The governor from TWD.
Oh god, that
You
guy.
can't
That guy
argue
was
that guy he was.
scumbag. He's a fucking scumbag.
But he had a story too. You know what I mean? He had a story just like Negan, just
Nope.
like the Joker.
Nah, he was a scumbag.
Maybe he was just insane.
So the governor was one of the characters that I hated the most. Even some about him is a rub, like just he's someone I wouldn't leave my family around.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I wouldn't leave my family around him. I wouldn't leave my kids around. I wouldn't leave someone. I would leave a complete stranger around him. Like he's just off. Something off about him. And kudos to the actor that played him because he did a fantastic
He
job.
did.
Exactly. That's perfect. Foxley. He was slimy and insane. Absolutely slimy. I hope he doesn't get it. He was just doing his job. But I would imagine, yeah, people are like, you played that shit a little too well. Keeping an eye on you.
Oh wow. That's the danger of in it being in that
being a good actor and playing
right,
bad roles.
in
Yeah.
that space,
Yep.
just that happens with anybody who has if you have a public persona like that, a personal brand. I mean, you got to be very careful about what you do, because you can get locked into roles that you never meant to be locked into. Like Jackie Chan is one of those that kind of locked into those action roles when
Yeah.
if you ever dig into that guy, I mean, he had no intention of being an action he was like theater and that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's a classically trained actor. I think opera singer as well, or something to that effect. I obviously a amazing martial artist. Right up there with.
I'm kind of salty about Herschel too. I liked Herschel.
I did like Herschel. Yeah, his character was what happened to him was fucked up.
See, he was the guy who had he had a moral compass. He understood that sometimes decisions have to be made. But he had a moral compass.
A very firm moral compass. Okay, and I don't know if we've outright asked this yet. But do you have to be good to have a whoa.
Okay.
We're not gonna have no Dale slander in here, okay?
Okay.
Wait, Dale. Hold on. Maybe
you don't even remember who the character is, and you're giving me shit about slandering Dale. He's the dude that owned the RV. PWD.
Oh yeah.
Dale.
Yeah. I thought he was talking about Daryl for a second. I'm about to throw hands for that. Dale. Yeah, okay, I remember.
Yeah, that character. I think they just overdid it a little bit with I mean, he was a busybody, and
he was.
Was willing to press his ideals on everyone around him, as if they didn't have their own. As if they weren't able to make their own decisions, because he felt.
Now I remember that guy.
Yeah. I don't.
He started out good, but then he became preachy. Like a little. It kind of gave me that holier than thou kind of vibe. After a while.
He was that guy who was suddenly the expert in the group on the zombie apocalypse, because he'd been there and done it all already.
Yeah. But my back to my question: do you have to be? Does the character have to be inherently good
for a hero's journey?
Or good for a hero's journey?
My answer is
do you have to be a hero to have a proper hero's journey?
See, Duelist kind of agrees.
No, and I agree with you, because if you look at some of the games that we've talked about, games like Fable, Elden Ring, Elden Ring's a little iffy.
Nice.
Dragon Age, not just Veilguard, but the other Dragon Age games. you can behave not heroically. You can be an asshole. You can be evil, especially in Fable. You can be evil. You can be flat out evil.
I am looking for Sylvester Stallone actually starred in a movie, a really recent movie. Samaritan.
Oh yeah, I did see that one. That one was actually pretty good.
Yes.
That one was actually a pretty good one.
Han Solo,
did
another
like that.
another one.
Yep. Han Solo was a good one. So for those of you who haven't seen Samaritan, Sylvester Stallone's character, um, spoilers. So if you don't want to hear, leave now or close your ears or something or what have you. But basically, his character was the twin of the actual hero, ended up killing his brother, but then taking his place because they
Well,
both wore masks. No one knew what they looked like.
he didn't actually take his place.
Well, he started to do good to atone for what he did. I guess is the best way to put it. After the fact, as he got he kind of hung it up. He kind of hung up the whole super villain,
I think it's a situational thing. In that movie, I think it's a situational thing, and that's one of those. It's kind of ambiguous as to how that happens. And I mean, the good things that he was doing were good things, but they were also self-serving things. I mean, he did have some compassion for the little boy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He had some compassion for the people around him. It wasn't necessarily that he was the good guy. It's just, hey, this needs doing, and I can do it.
Fair point. Yeah, I see your point, because it wasn't like he went out of his way. I mean, he went out of his way for the kid, to help him, but he didn't really go out of his way in terms of helping anyone outside of that circle. Kid, the people in his neighborhood, people at his job. Outside of that, really wasn't.
And Duelist is talking about Han Solo, and that's another good one. I absolutely agree that he was a smuggler. I mean, the dude was basically a career
thief,
a petty thief at that. Really, not like he was a really good criminal or anything.
Yeah, homeboy was just getting by. The Millennium Falcon was sometimes flying our hopes and dreams. What being considered one of the greatest ships in the galaxy, the Millennium Falcon was held together by duct tape and bubblegum.
Foxy, I think that is honestly, it's in the eyes of the beholder. Because if you do, she's asking, so if you do the right thing for the wrong reason, are you still heroic? And I think it really depends on the person observing it. I mean, let's say that a character like Shane, in the end of that, he didn't die. All right, let's change it. He didn't die. He actually, welcomed Rick back after all the bad shit had happened. Rather than trying to kill him in the end, he actually, decided, hey, you know what? I love you, man. You're my best friend. I'm glad you're here. I apologize or what, stuff happened between your wife and I, but I've been taking care of your son. It's her choice if she wants to, what she wants to do. Let's say it happened that way. Then you may view some of what happened with him as more quote unquote heroic. Suddenly he's a good guy again. But if you know the context and you've watched all the season and seen all the times that this guy's contemplated killing Rick, And some of the shady shit that he did, like with the Otis
like
situation.
you kind of see that bird's eye view of things. You're like, oh, okay, all right, this guy, he really
like the guy that
really
he
thinking about it.
supposedly was helping escape and then snapped his neck in the woods. I mean,
Yep.
I agree with
is the
that.
king of
Shane
shady
was the
shit.
hero in his story. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Duelist Con, we were actually talking about Dragon Age Veilguard earlier, which is part of kind of this whole hero's journey piece. Have you played that game yet? Because it has come out and it is out. It's been out for a couple days now. And you too, Foxy. What do y'all think of that particular game?
We're on a stinking ad break right this moment, so.
Are we? Shame.
Yes. But hey, that's good. That's a good question. Shane is the king of shady shit. I agree 100% with that.
He is. Very much so.
Dragon Age isn't okay.
Yeah, okay, so both of you have not played it nor have watched any Let's Plays, although Duelist Kind, you were kind of waiting to see how it was reviewed, and you're right, Bioware has been taking some L's lately. Okay, so yeah, I feel about the same way. Origins was absolutely amazing. 2 was I felt 2 was rushed, and it was rushed when you look back on the development cycle of Dragon Age Dragon Age 2. It was rushed, absolutely. And then I haven't played Inquisition. I do have to play that one. That one I do plan to go back and play. Okay, well, I mean, there are plenty of folks out there who are, doing reviews of the game. It's a pretty hot topic, and I don't want to get into all the hoopla that certain people are going off about. For me, the whole my take on it is I'm not gonna get it, just because from what I've seen from Let's Plays that I have watched, it's not my thing. I'm not gonna spend the money on it.
What if you got a free copy?
I probably wouldn't play it. I honestly probably wouldn't play it. Like again, I watched a Let's Play, and they went through mechanics and story beats, and the biggest thing for me, the dialogue, and it's gonna come out harsh, and you know what, I'm just gonna be blunt. Dialogue is god awful. The dialogue is really bad. So that's my take on it. Again, I don't want to go into all of that. Just what it is. What it is. Like I saw enough of the dialogue to like meh.
Yeah, you go from being the guy who deals with the whole darkspawn thing, and then to being on the run. Yeah. Story's got to make sense. There's so many that I see that with there's a lot of video game series that are out there that they don't tie together like that. Some of them it works, but a game like that, you kind of have to tie the story together, make it make sense.
Yeah. You got to tie the story together. You gotta make sure it's cohesive. Make sure it narratively makes sense. That it that you follow a kind of I don't want to say a theme, but that the narrative storytelling is comparable game to game, especially if it's like Dragon Age, like a Dragon Age game, or Mass Effect. Like the narrative storytelling, obviously, yes, they had different writers, but you can tell that they all follow kind of that same road, more or less. but with Veilguard, from what I've seen, in my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. They took a left with the dialogue. Um, so that said, though, some of the games of the years that have been announced are well, depending on who you're going to, because again, there are multiple different folks who are going to host their own game of the year. Black Myth Wukong's up there. I'm hearing some Space Marine 2 is going to be up there. Let's see. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was just released. Dragon Age is on there. Helldivers 2 is on there. Silent Hill 2. There are a couple of different games on there. Some I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. Some I'm like, huh. Let's see. Astrobot. It's another one that's on there. I'm just glad Black Myth Wukong is on there. For me. It is that time of the year. Yeah, Foxy Project. It's that time of the year. One more month, and yeah.
GOTY is coming.
You are correct, Duelist Kind. I will agree with you on that one. Well, I'm not going to say you're correct. I'm going to say I agree. I agree with you because some people are going to say you were both out of our mind. The pickings for Game of the Year this year. I mean, there's one that I think is pretty good. Again, Black Myth Wukong is definitely up there. Mario, Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. That's another one that actually one of my buddies, Matt, he actually played it. I watched some of it. Pretty good, pretty solid game.
Where do you think Warhammer is going to come in?
Space Marine 2. That's a tough one because it's a very niched game. Well, niched world, niched lore. Do I think it has a shot? Definitely. Do I think it will win some awards? Absolutely. I foresee it winning some awards because it was a really good game. Really, really, really good game.
It definitely got a lot of attention.
I did. Yeah, I did. So Wukong is definitely a contender. I haven't played it. It's on my list of things to play. So many games out there to buy and get, and unless again, like we were talking earlier, you get them for free, and I shell out a ton of money.
Black Myth and Space
Marine.
Yeah,
for me, Black Myth and Space Marine are mine too. Helldivers 2, maybe. And I know I'm missing one or two that just float in the back of my head. I can't remember which ones that I think should definitely be on that list. I think wasn't one of the latest Jedi Survivors game on there as well? Didn't that one of those release this year?
I don't know. I suck with remembering when games come out.
You and me both. No, that was 2023.
Yeah, it was pretty easy to pick last year. Star Wars Outlaws came out this year.
Oh, Outlaws. That was the one that came out this year. I've heard some mixed reviews on Outlaws, and clearly Outlaws also didn't do very well because it didn't sell well. So I don't really think that one is going to be in the running. Yeah. So slim pickings this year. But that said, unless you guys got anything else, I believe we might be at our end.
So, okay. So for tomorrow, Make sure you join us tomorrow, 7 p.m. CST. We are going to be doing a review on book 6 of the Wheel of Time, Lord of Chaos.
Yes, we are.
Looking forward to that one as well, because that's a turning point book in the series. And it's good. It is an awesome book. But yeah, so
I am
so
very much looking forward to that one.
So we'll be doing that one tomorrow evening. Yes. So please do join us. Couple of things to look forward to in the near future. I think I am going to do we're working on a to video series in Symborum.
We are.
It's taken a little longer than we anticipated to actually get anything produced for that. So I think I might run a couple of one-shot games here on Twitch. I've been looking at what I want to do with that. Maybe another Alien game, short run series, or The Walking Dead, especially after our conversation tonight. I was just looking at that the other day and thinking, hey, you know what? I know I have to run this. So why not very soon, you know?
Yeah,
I love The Walking
we have
Dead
been
anyway,
talking
so.
about doing a Walking Dead one shot for a while now. So
Yes.
might as well.
Yes, then I can play some morally ambiguous characters, and I'd never do that. All my characters are good, heroic people. What are you laughing about? So,
sir.
So, and a couple more things to look forward in the near future. We are in the process of talking with Thomas Terrenstam from Free League Press to have him back on the show to talk about the upcoming release of Aliens 2nd Edition and all the expansions that are going with that. So really looking forward to that. One of our team members, Darkpawn, is going to be running Alien at GaryCon in March 2025. So we got that. Also talking with Shannon Kingston. Some of you may know that name, but she is one of the owners of the Red Sonja LLC IP. And we're going to have her on as well to talk about what's going on in the Red Sonja world and all those things. And I've also been chatting with Mr. Goodsell from Upheaval AI, and going to try and get. Go ahead.
No, we also have one other potential guest speaker who's going to be coming on to the show. You might know him as the creator of Vampire the Masquerade, Mr. Mark Ryan Hagen. We're in talks right now with him to get him on the show and sit down and share kind of his decades of wisdom and how it feels to have created such an amazing game and then or teacher RPG and then having Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines created out of that. Apparently there's Bloodlines 2 that's coming out. I don't know when, but apparently it's in the works.
And we're also still working on potentially having Luke Gygax on as well. So probably as we get closer to the end of the year here and rolling into 2025, and ideally we're going to really be promoting for GaryCon 2025 and give some love there because they've been very good to us so far. So
absolutely. But yeah, that's it for us for today, guys. Thank you guys for coming out. Thanks for having that conversation. I know it wasn't it's video game heavy, but I definitely had a awesome time having that conversation with you guys because that's the hero's journey and that whole thing. I mean, that's one of the great storytelling pieces of many ages.
if you have not already, I think most of the people on tonight are part of our Discord community. But if you have not joined our Discord community, please do. There's a lot of things going on over there. We use the question and answer section in there to also help pull some content for the community and for the update log.
Take y'all's brains.
You bet. And you also have the disco community. Yes, Baptize. It is the disco community. No, it's the Discord
It's
community.
coming back.
He knows that.
Disco's coming back, baby.
Disco's coming back. Bell bottoms too, man. Sideburns, the whole deal. But yeah, so join the Discord. Follow the link on there. Follow us on X. Just stay in touch because lots of exciting things coming up, and we love to hear from you guys. So,
you guys have a good night, and
bell bottoms.
That's it for episode 74 of the update log. And apparently, Foxy Project is 10 out of 10 for bell bottoms.
Yeah. I still have some bell bottoms. I don't show them to anybody.
You know what? I'm not even surprised. Not even surprised. Not even a little bit.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Adios, guys.
All right.